Welcome back again, and we're talking here about becoming the person who finishes, sustaining momentum beyond therapy. I'm Michael Browning, founder and director of Lifestone Clinic, and it's my privilege to be giving you this course here on motivation and how to get the best out of therapy. So session 9. What we're talking about here is how to continue growth after therapy. So there is a point, as therapy ends, and I'll say just a bit on that, but the whole point of therapy really is to get to a stage where you don't need therapy, right? That's a good sign. I mean, the old days, we're talking about Freud and the early psychoanalysts and stuff, like it was not uncommon. You'd have these kind of bourgeois people coming like twice a week for 2-hour sessions, and they'd be doing this for decades, and then just exploring their subconscious and their dreams and everything else. Like, that's not usually therapy today. I mean, there's still places to do that, mind you, but that's not really the point of therapy, to be in therapy forever, okay? You want to develop and grow and become something, become new, become strengthened, become a person of a certain character and so on. You do that, and you're done with therapy. Like, maybe there'll be an issue that comes up in the future and you got to come back for a bit, and you want extra help, or you're stuck using all the tools and you're not getting where you want, you need extra help, but you might come back, that's fine. But for the most part, therapy is like, I got to the point I wanted to get to, and now I'm going to live my life. I'm going to continue to live my life. So that's the point. But most therapy will end with what's called a closure session. It can be 1 or 2 sessions, and what people do in the closure session is usually the second to last one, is they look back at everything from the beginning. Like, this is where I came from. This is why I came to therapy. Here's what my life was like. And then review, here's what I grew in. Here's what I developed. Here's what happened during the process of therapy. And here's where I am today. Right? So you do one of those. And then the therapist might give you a document or something to go and work on, because it's going to be your plan. Like my plan after therapy. And you take that plan, you sit on that for some weeks, and you write things out or type them out, whatever, and you come up with, like, these are all the things we're going to continue to do. I'm going to take all these types of things I picked up during therapy and put this into my resource manual, and I'm going to continue on with this commitment to be consistent with this, and that. I might take on a new venture. I might read certain books, whatever, right? Maybe I do need to structure in a little bit of accountability, whether it's an anonymous group or check-ins with the therapist still or whatever. But for the most part, what am I going to do after therapy? So, that's how most therapy should end. Sometimes people, like I said from previous videos, they kind of have this drop-off thing, and you just don't see them anymore. And that's, even if they got what they want, that's a terrible way to end therapy, okay? Therapy should end with the looking forward to what's next, how I'm going to handle it without going to therapy. So that should be in your mind from the beginning. But as you get to that end point, this is the topic of today. It's sustaining momentum beyond therapy. So, you might have something similar to a relapse prevention plan. These are the necessary things I need to continue to do in order to not fall back into where I started, right? Identity statements, exercise, like maybe reaffirming who I've come to see myself as, being clear about that, keeping that mission and that sense of identity in mind. And then, of course, looking at future goals and things I want to now go out and achieve. Now that I kind of fixed some of these things that weren't working for me, look at all the stuff I can do. I never thought maybe I would do that. I have opportunity, have new mission, new purpose. So I'm going to go and make a plan for that. So this is very forward-looking, hopeful-looking, right, into the things that are ahead. And that's all part of the wrap-up and importance, so that when you're done with your last session in therapy, you still have a guide. You still have sort of resources. You still have accountability in that sense to yourself, right? So that's all important part. So don't leave therapy before you get to that part, because that's a very important part, to make sure that what is earned by you is cemented in and it's kept, right? So therapy, as I said, it's not the finish line. It's really, therapy is just your training grounds, okay? It's training so that you can go and play the game, all right? It's more preseason. It's not postseason. Okay, the rest of your life, that's your whole regular season, and you need therapy maybe for a time in your life to get you ready for that. The cycle of growth in therapy is really one where there's a beginning of effort, there's lots of discomfort, it causes change, okay, change in behavior, coming to stability. So you have a flow, and that's how you kind of know therapy's working. Is you start off with that effort to discomfort to change to sustainability or stability. We want to be very aware, and you will be through the process of therapy, of seeing your warning signs, things that are flags for, oh, the bad stuff's coming back, or I'm slipping into old thinking and old patterns of behavior. So you're going to learn that along the way, and you keep being aware of that. One of the mistakes people make is they start to run on fumes. They make all the hard efforts, things are better, and they start to coast. It's like, well, if you don't stay vigilant to some things, they will come back. You got to remember that before you got into therapy, you've had years, maybe decades of habit forming, and these things don't just suddenly leave your brain, right? Like they're in there, they're grooved in. You've got neural pathways for that. So if you don't watch the signs, before you know it, you absentmindedly turned off the highway and you're back on that old side road, and there you are stuck again, right? So you want to keep on mission and be aware of those wrongful off-ramps. You don't want to get back into the old way of doing things. And so that's a very important part here as well. You want to ensure, like I said, the closure module for the wrap-up, and bring everything that you've learned to it so you can kind of codify it into your plan. And you also want to look at who you are becoming, right? Like this is the idea, is like you've become somebody new. If you've gone through therapy and done the work, you're no longer the same person you started off as. Mostly you've changed your perception of self, which maybe you are always wonderful. Okay, now you actually appreciate it. But a lot of times we appreciate it because we see the change in ourselves, right? It's like we validate the effort now because we see the results. And that's a very important and confirming thing that we can experience. So this will help, maybe part of an exercise is creating your long-term identity statement, but you're not going to do that now because like you're just watching a course. When you get through therapy, you want to make sure you use something about making sure you know your identity and you're affirming that, okay? So you might want to look at yourself now for the homework of before you go to your first therapy session, and what is like a future self roadmap? Like dream a little bit. I know you're still stuck probably in a particular problem you're in, but like imagine the future. Similar to the first exercise where it's like the magic wand, what would it be like? But a little bit more. Like dream beyond just getting out of your problem. Dream beyond just being you the way you are with slightly less issues. Think about what you really want in life. What is the real beautiful thing you want to create, participate in, become part of? Have some sense of dream about that if you can. If you're in deep depression, it's very difficult, but give it a shot. And remember that once in a while. You got to remember that when you're starting and going through all those hard points in therapy, there's something greater on the other side, because there is. So I hope all these courses, this course and all the sessions have helped you. The last video is a very short one. It's just to conclude things off, but I appreciate you for being here. I'll see you at the last video.